It is July the 2nd, Tuesday, and we will call this committee of the whole to order at 6:30 p.m. First motion is adoption of the agenda. Councillor Maybe and Deputy Mayor Fody bring forward a motion that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Any questions or comments in regards to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Next item is declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Is there any interest to declare? No hands up. So we'll move forward with number 4, which is delegations, presentations, and there are none this evening. Number 5 is staff reports, and it's a cemetery bylaw coming forward from Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 24-032, being bylaw to regulate the operation of cemeteries in the township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands in accordance with the Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act 2002. Motion is on the floor, up for discussion. Councillor Maybe, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, just a few points that I seen in the report, and one of them is publishing in the newspapers or other means. Because newspapers are becoming almost redundant and not available, is there another avenue being looked at to actually put publications out so people actually know what's going on with said? And do you want to answer or want me to? Okay, I'll keep going. The next one is, will there be a township rep at any internment? I know that they have to, open and close because there's some, again, another little note in there about some material there and being conscious of what's there. So just wondering if there's a rep being present. Another one was on 9C, it talked about the depth of the foundation, which was indicated at 48 inches, which the building code doesn't even have a foundation of a house needing to be that deep. It's close, but I found it very, very deep for what it's actually holding. And I know that there has been instability in markers in graveyards around our community, but those were only like a foot deep. So I'm just wondering, is that a guideline by the yeah, that's what it is. Thanks. And then my last one was there's the costing for the casket is 800 and cremation is 450, and for the ground. And I'm kind of wondering, the cremation urn is typically so much smaller. So again, is that set by the province? Thank you.
Through your worship, thank you for your questions, Councillor Maybe. So in terms of publishing, other avenues that we could include are our website and also our social media platforms, but we would like to consider newspapers as well. Will there be a township rep for any interment? So in terms of that situation, typically what I will be doing is meeting our gravedigger on site, making sure that what needs to be marked for any cremation or burial is in place. And we are in constant communication with that being said. And then it is the gravedigger's responsibility to be at that site for the interment and following that process. But it is my case to always be out there meeting the gravedigger and making sure that the process is followed before any interment or burial. In terms of the depth of the foundation, this is something that is set out by the province, and this is something that I've similarly found in other bylaws within our jurisdiction. And then in terms of costing, this is something that I mentioned previously, but I just want to reiterate, when it comes to costing for the cemetery, we're keeping the cost the same as it was before with the Lyndhurst/St. Luke Cemetery Board. And then we will relook at it in Q1 of 2025. But we just want to make sure that the costing is kept the same, and we'll let everyone who is part of that cemetery know, and then we'll look at changes in the new year.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Kelman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the clerk. I just wanted to thank the township and particularly the clerk for taking this on because this is still a very active and often used cemetery, and it's really important to the community. So I know it's very much appreciated. And I know this is extra workload for you in particular, Megan. So thank you very much. Just two things that we don't need to include now, but because I am on a board for another cemetery that have come up quite often in recent years, is green burials and also scattering grounds within the cemetery. So we may want to include consideration for those things and what we would want to do if we had requests for either of those items in the future. Thanks again.
Any further comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I have seen a list of the cemeteries that the township is responsible for. I wonder if you could mail that out, at least to myself. Because there are a couple of cemeteries, I want to see if they're on our list. I don't want to get into it this evening. I just want to make sure if we have this new bylaw that they would also be up to speed. And because they are real cemeteries, and I just want to make sure they're on our list. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have just poses another question. Do we have a complete list of all the cemeteries in the township as well as the ones that are just maintained by the township?
Through Your Worship, that's correct.
Okay, so I would love to see the whole list and then the ones that are just us, if you could be so kind.
Yes, I will send that out tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. Thank you. Next item is 5.2, purchase of a 2024 Ford F-150 pickup. And the motion comes forward from Councillor Jameson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorize staff to proceed with the purchase of a 2024 Ford F-150 pickup truck from Chase-on Ford in Gananoque in the amount of $52,937 plus net HST through the 2024 Police Co-op Purchasing Group, PCPG. Discussion on the motion. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, the best thing about this is that it is a local dealer who's getting this purchase. So it is good to see that we are using our local vendor in this case. I know we haven't in the past, but again, it's all price driven. So again, thank you very much for just going through the local, and the price, I believe, was actually better than first thought. So thank you.
Any further comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Yeah, like Councillor maybe had said, it's good to see local. And talking to the chief, I understand now why. But more importantly, the price. I was nosing around for some of these same trucks 6 or 8 weeks ago, and they definitely weren't those price tags. This is a good price from what I've seen. And the only question I have, I assume there's a little more added costs as far as decals and lighting and things like that to be done to this truck.
Through Your Worship, yes. Once the truck comes to us, we'll ship it out to get the light package put on it and the decals that we normally do outfitted. It'll look very similar to the truck I drive now.
Ballpark price.
Probably $5,000.
Okay.
And that would have been contemplated in budget.
Right.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Questions? I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. I too was very pleased to see the price, and it's great that we have the ability to piggyback on these programs with other first responders, that we can take the benefit of those great prices. 5.3, purchase of a landing craft style rescue boat, moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council authorize the purchase of a landing craft style fire rescue boat from ASM Sturgeon Falls in the amount of $162,150 plus net HST. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Kelman, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the chief. I'm sorry, I don't think I missed it in the report. I just wonder where it's going to be docked, where the plan is for docking.
Through Your Worship, I'm in negotiations right now with the marina in Gananoque to have it at that area, because one of the things we want to make sure we have is access for our trucks as well as for EMS. They like to have a specific spot that they arrive at because they've got so many different spots along the way. If they have a boat that's set in, they like to have a spot that we could go, and having a spot at a marina is really good because it's watched 24/7 as well, and it's on the water, so it saves our response time of loading the boat making sure it's hooked to the truck and then into the town or wherever. So saves a bit of time.
Any further comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fode.
Thank you, your worship, through you. Excuse me. It indicates here with the engine price at 3,000. Is that indicative of we bumped it from the 250 to 300 horse?
Through your worship, yes.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I'm just glad to see that once again we're supporting in a different way our folks on the river, whether they're full-time residents, part-time, or here on vacation. I mean, you've answered a few calls your department this year out on the river, so it's good that we have their backs when they need it. Thanks.
Any Councillor Maybe, and then Councillor Gorell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the chief. So with the boat in the water, will this actually increase more use of it or more training and any other activities that might be happening in the vicinity, whether it be just like yesterday with the fireworks, actually be participating in that, or?
Through your worship, absolutely. We try to get our crews out on the water because it's a little different, obviously, than being on the highway. You've got road maps of where everything is. And as the year goes on, the water levels drop. So we need to be out as much as we can training on that boat, as well as learning all the islands and making sure we know where things are. Because as you well know from being around, and the other boaters in the gallery, they've got about 6 different names for all the islands on lots of cases. So we have to be well versed in where we're going on that. Having a boat in that end of the township definitely helps us out as far as a response. And on bare water, obviously the St. Lawrence River in a 21 or 22 foot open bow boat is definitely a different story than on a 24-foot steel boat.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go out in much different waves and different types of weather now with actually a house on top of it to protect us.
And just a second question, the present boat that you have, its pump capacity compared to what the pump capacity on this vessel may be?
Through your worship, so our current boat has about a 400 gallon a minute pump. We're looking at something around 500 gallons, which we actually have a portable pump in mind within house that we can use for that.
And just to follow up, will this boat have a fixed nozzle or as well as the hoses? Will it?
Yes, as well. On our current Marine 5 that sits at Ivy Lee, we don't have that. We have a line plumbed in from the suction side and then just lines off. But having a deck gun on the front of the boat gives us the opportunity to hit from a distance. It gives us an opportunity to come up to the dock, break those lines off, and run different size lines to wherever we need to. But we can fight a fire from the boat without actually having to hold on to hand lines, which is much easier.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Gorell.
Thank you. Through you, your worship, and the question was answered. I was curious about the pump that's going to be on this, whether it was an additional accessory or we had one, and I believe you mentioned we had one already. I would like to follow up though on the idea of knowing where crews are going on the river. Just this week, it was brought to my attention by a constituent who's an islander that they've witnessed, not us necessarily, but emergency response being less timely because they didn't know where they were going precisely. You know, it's a big river. There's thousands of addresses out there. And I know from experience of 23 years, you know the river north-south. You do not know the river east-west. So no matter what crew gets there first is going to have their knowledge and only their knowledge. So my question is, what can we do or what do we do to absolutely guarantee that emergency services, and I'm not thinking fire right now, I'm really thinking heart attacks. How do we get to the residents as quickly as possible? Because minutes, as we all know, count. So what do we do currently that any group of firefighters on that boat, along with some EMS people, are going as quickly as possible? Thank you.
Through your worship. So we have a couple of different ways that we do that. Included in this boat is a GPS system with all the current and up-to-date island locations. And you, as well as others, know the numbering on them is definitely substandard, because one on one island is on the northeast side, one on another island is the southwest side. So it's definitely very challenging. So some of the things that we're doing through our fire prevention program is we're actually telling people to for the island folks to put a light out at the end of their dock, have somebody at the end of their dock with a flashlight. Gives us a bit better idea if you come into somewhere where there's a bunch of different docks and we know where we're going. One of the other things that we're using is an app called What Three Words, and that certainly is making us become a whole lot closer to where we want to be at the end of the response.
Just to follow up on that, and thank you very much, Chief. I think this township would be wise to give some strong consideration to the best possible addressing system for the islands. I could just say there's over 80 residences or cottages on Tar Island alone. That's Tar, let alone Grenadier, and all the islands off of Gananoque would be a nightmare for people who really don't know that portion of a river. So we should go out of our way to get the best addressing we can. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep, go ahead.
One of the other things that is with this boat response to islands, as far as medical response, it's very challenging in the current boats we have, and the smaller ones, to get the backboard and the stretchers into those, where with a flat bottom boat with a ramp, we could actually beach the boat and put the stretcher on that way. We can protect the patient by putting them in the cabin of it. What's happening is EMS used to just get on a boat and go with whoever showed up. If you showed up with your pontoon boat, they don't do that anymore, because they had a workplace incident a few years ago where they landed on, they don't even like to get off on docks they don't want to do that at all. They had a patient that went off a dock as well, while in the middle of a medical call. So they want to go by fireboat. They want to go by police boat or Parks Canada. So they're very choosy on what they go on. We are also, which I also didn't know this, we're the only boat, Kingston, Howe Island has a small craft there, but and then Gananoque has their dedicated fireboat, but we're it until you get almost to Cornwall. There's nobody else
Really?
has a fireboat. Brockville has a workboat that the fire department and the police use. And I know that I was talking with the fire chief because he wants to see our proposal of what we've got, because they want to look at something there, because they know if they call us, we're quite a ways from Ivy Lee to Brockville, or towing a boat down there, which I've done in the past. And it's a lot of big water there for a very small boat. It's not a fun ride.
Just
Follow up?
anecdotally, and thanks for that, Fire Chief. Just anecdotally interesting, when I first moved here some years ago, there was a fire on what would be the national park on the east end of Grenadier Island. And I was the second person to get there with a boat just to observe what was going on. In the fire department that came was Hammond, New York. They beat us by an hour, and we didn't have any boats in the water at that time. And we certainly didn't have any boats that were capable of pumping water. So Hammond, New York came up, and it was kind of embarrassing, that we didn't have a boat in the water. That was a fire. And fortunately, the wind was blowing from west to east rather than up island, shall we say. It would have been a real disaster. Anyway, just anecdotally, we need fireboats. Thank you.
And one other thing, I did, and I think the mayor was CC'd in on this. The Thousand Islands Association will be donating $5,000 to the fire department for the purchase of the boat in their upcoming meeting this summer. So we're pretty excited to have that as well. So that takes $5,000 out of the bill on that as well. So we're very, very fortunate to have their support All they want is us to come and collect the check and do a demonstration with our boats. So we'll do that as well.
So I'm gonna let Counselor Lackey in and then back to you, Counselor Maybe.
No, sorry, through you, your worship, perhaps it could be at the Thousand Islands Association Annual General Meeting.
It is
at
going to,
breakfast.
it's already
Fine.
scheduled.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was wondering, is there any consideration, and maybe Director Venditti might know about our 911 numbering system, whether that's out in the islands or whether it's something that could be out there, just like our homes going up and down the road, you have a number. As much as it's difficult from a distance or, maybe at nighttime, but it would indicate, and if the resident of the island and cottager had that number, it might direct you a little better.
Go ahead, Ms. Venditti.
Thank you. Through your civic addressing bylaw actually does apply to all of the islands. However, there's a number of anomalies that have existed over the years and addresses that have been assigned. And to undertake a full review of all of the islands and all of the properties in civic addressing would be a full-time job. So we look at them as they come forward, but it's not something that we can go out and just police.
So I would say, oh, sorry, I'll let the CAO in. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. One thing people can do, and you don't have to be an islander, you can be anywhere, is Chief Pryor mentioned that app, What 3 Words? And I think we talked about it with council in connection with the tragedy that happened earlier this year up in Charleston Lake, where some young people went through the ice. The survivor was found very quickly because they happen to have this app on their phone. And what it does, it divides up everywhere into 1 meter square cubes. And it will assign 3 random words to whatever cube you are in. So when you call 911, you don't necessarily have to say, well, I'm at number 4 Goose Island, which is also known as, blah, 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 blah. You can say the what 3 words that are on your phone for where you are, and that will go to our first responders and with pinpoint accuracy. So the people at home, if you're concerned about all this, it's a free app. I have it on my phone. It's very easy to use, and it will make sure that our fire people can find where they need to go.
And it is something that hunters, skiers, boaters, hikers, all people who like the outdoors and want to be in nature per se, maybe people don't know exactly where you are. This allows you to be tracked. So the app is free. We highly recommend that you download it, especially if you're going to be venturing out doing anything, really. So go ahead, Councilor Ramey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to that point, at the Lansdowne Fair, the Turkey Fair, and things like that, excuse me, my voice is a little raspy today. For the Turkey Fair, will the fire department and possibly the township have a booth at which they could have that information put out there?
We always attend both of those events, and the fire department is constantly educating people, from what I understand. And Fire Prevention Officer Richardson has been doing certain things on social media, trying to get that out. So I imagine that'll be a big part of their presentation at the TIA breakfast that's happening in 2-3 weeks, Mr. Lackey.
July 20th.
July 20th. So it's the same weekend as Lansdowne Fair in the morning. But always a very good turnout. And the Thousand Islands Association has been historically the one who puts out all the shoal markers within all of the river. And without them, we'd have a lot more accidents and a lot more people stranded out there. So they do very important work. And really, it's quite an honor to see that they want to give $5,000 to us, because I know that they believe in the program. And last year they had Clayton's, was it Clayton or Alex Bay's boat?
Clayton.
It was Clayton's boat. It's over $1 million for the water cannon boat that they have. It is a spectacular boat, but it's up for replacement, and now it's going to be 1 point whatever to replace it. So to me, when I looked at this report and I saw how much we were spending to have something similar, obviously it's not the same, for this price range, I think it's a cheap way for us to be able to serve our residents on islands, and whether it be a fire, whether it be a medical distress call, what have you, we will be in a position to respond quickly. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I like what Councillor Gorell brought up. I think with the amount of residents we have on the river and the amount of taxes we collect from those same residents, perhaps we should engage the heavy lifting on this end to promote this app, do whatever else we can along that way. It may take a few years to get the message out everywhere. I remember Ms. Venditti's comments before about almost a nightmarish approach to putting civic address signs on the river, to which it may very well be, but with groups like Thousand Islands Association, perhaps if we reach out to them, we could pull some ideas from them that would be worthy of listening to as well.
Go ahead, Ms. Venditti.
If I could just clarify, there are civic addressing signs out on the river and they are required to post them at their dock. So that is a requirement. And every time there's a building permit issued, we do check civic addressing. But what I'm suggesting is there's a lot of places where civic addresses, if you go by the conventions in the bylaw, they haven't been assigned according necessarily to all of those conventions.
And,
So
and to the point that it was made earlier, that sometimes number one is on the southeast corner instead of the northwest, or whatever wherever it should be. The consistency isn't there, which is what I think.
that's
is-
correct. The consistency isn't there. There are addresses. It's just they're not consistently applied.
So the What Three Words app alleviates a lot of that, or all of it, to be honest, because it gives you that 1 meter squared pinpoint, as you say, that people can respond to. So that may just be the education piece, and maybe there's something we should put up at our wharf down in Ivy Lee, down at our maybe signage down at our, if you're venturing out today, make sure you have this in case you're stranded. Go ahead, Mr. Laggy.
Just another note on the blades and the blade placements. They shouldn't necessarily be on the docks, because a lot of places have their docks on either a leeward side of the island, which is a non-traveled side.
Right.
They would never see a blade there anyway. It should be put out towards a navigable waterway, not the backside of your island.
Right. So I think this poses further questions about this, and maybe this can be a project coming forward in the future, that when there's time, because we've obviously allocated time and funds for this, resources for this year, but something to be complicated or contemplated in the future. So go ahead, Chief.
Through your worship, I just wanted to add in, I found it interesting. So I had a search of the last 5 years in fire calls on the water. It doesn't break it down between stations or boat where the call was. But we had 62 calls on the waterways in the last 5 years. So that's everything from fires to smoke alarm calls, rescue calls, remote alarms, public service, public hazards, medicals, and MVAs. So we've actually had a boating accident that we've attended as well. So the majority of those calls I can definitely say are on the riverside, because it's obviously much busier. Followed by Charleston Lake would be our next busiest lake, just through the activity on that. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to add that information in. So
I think it has a lot to do with speed too. The speed on the river is very different than on the lake.
Yep.
Unless you're Mr. Lackey. But anyways, go ahead, Counselor, maybe.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, one more thing. With this boat, there's a trailer that comes with it, correct? So that you can bring it in and out. So in the event that something happens up in Charleston Lake that you need a bigger boat for, you could simply pull it and take it there.
through your worship, yes, absolutely, we can do that. That's why I want to put it in the river, is because it's much easier to have it on that, and it's busier on that end, but it also having the trailer as well gives us the ability to pull it out and take it where we need to go if necessary.
Great. Okay, well, I think we've talked that one out. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next item is 5.4 amendments to refreshment vehicle bylaw, moved by Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 24-033, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 22-035 to regulate and govern refreshment vehicles in the township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Discussion on the motion. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm gonna call the question on that. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. I know that our bylaw officer will be very appreciative of that, so. The next item is 2024 Community Improvement Plan Spring Intake, moved by Councillor Lackey, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve the 2024 Community Improvement Plan Spring Intake distribution in the amount of $15,000 as attached to Exhibit A to Planning and Development 2024-051. And that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council direct staff to prepare a funding agreement for each four approved 2024 Spring Intake CIP applications to be executed by the Mayor and the Clerk. Discussion on the motion. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I guess the first thing I realized when I looked at this, I was a little surprised at the lack of activity or applications. I know that the program's new. I suppose that's the number one reason. And then maybe there wasn't a lot of time for people to get a estimate of what some of these requirements would be in order to put this application forward. But I'm kind of hoping with all the work we put into this in the past year and a bit that we'd have a heavier uptake come fall, I would hope. Thank you.
I think it does take time to get some traction and also use these if they are passed this evening as they complete those projects, that we have pictures of things that we can use it as marketing. Go ahead, Ms. Venditti.
Thank you, through you. In addition to that, I think we're also making people aware of it as they come through our pre-consultation process. So we're building some more knowledge around it as we go through talking to people, trying to raise more awareness.
So it'll just take more time as people become more aware. Fair enough. To go follow up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. I did have one question here. I overlooked it. Materials such as vinyl siding are not considered. Can anyone explain why?
It's not a heritage project or not, sorry.
I thought that was kind of strange when I saw it.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, that's a direct line in the community improvement plan, that life cycle replacements of things like lighting and vinyl siding are not eligible.
Okay.
Whereas something like a more traditional cladding for a facade, like the brick repointing project at 413 Lyndhurst Road, is certainly eligible, and also because it's a listed property is eligible for the Heritage Grant.
Okay, so it's a life cycle thing. Is that really what it boils down to? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess what I was looking at is from an aesthetics standpoint, some buildings would look much different. We've already seen a number of people in our area and other areas as well. In the past 2 years, there's been a lot of homeowners have taken on projects to re-side their house, and there's currently one going on just north of Villager right now. But when I saw that, I had to ask the question as to why. And then likewise, finished flooring surfaces and drywalls are ineligible. Is that because they're finished? They're already, the drywall likewise is already up. It hasn't been pre-approved.
Through you, Your Worship, that's also referenced directly in the community improvement plan document that was approved by council. More like aesthetic things like flooring and drywall are considered ineligible, whereas things like plumbing and electrical work for the conversion of a building would certainly be eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Cummin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I just think along what the Deputy Mayor was saying, just to build awareness, if we could do social media posts about the specific projects that have been done, then that might spur some other businesses or homeowners to say, oh, I forgot, I'll just make more awareness. So that would be a good idea.
Fair enough. Okay. Seeing no other hands, I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. Moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Go ahead, Councillor Jameson, and then Councillor Maybe.
Just wondering if there's been any word back from the county respecting the Furnace Falls Bridge in particular and the road in general. Thank you.
So we had a county tour on would have been the 24th of June. Furnace Falls Farm or Furnace Falls Bridge was one of the stops, and we actually got out. And to say that I was very direct and pointed would be an understatement. We had the Director of Public Works as well as the road superintendent on site. The bridge is in pretty desperate repair on the one end. The structure underneath is perfectly fine. The engineers have validated this, but the stonework on the exterior of the bridge is in some need of TLC, and it has been for quite some time. I think the explanation that I got at that time was, well, we keep getting quotes that are well above budget to do the work that they're doing, but they were also looking at the bridge as a whole to do all of the bridge. But if you look at that bridge, it's really the easterly side of the bridge on both sides, and then the interior of the bridge that needs the most immediate attention. The mortar between the stones on the east side of the bridge on both sides, both the dam side and the upriver, are showing like there's gaping holes. So one of the road supers said that I think we might do this in stages, that we do, so much this year, so much next year, so much the year after. And my response to him was, okay, let's do it. So, that's not a definitive answer as far as timing is concerned, but the rest of my county council colleagues have also seen it and have heard me sort of bang the drum every time that this has come up. So I'm hopeful that the individuals in Public Works, it's on the list for this year to do. I just don't know if at this point they haven't awarded the tender, but I think they just need to revise it to be either one end of it, one side of it this year, one side of it next year, but they need to get going on it. So there's that. The other thing my understanding is, as far as speed limits, reductions, that there is a protocol that is being followed, and Mr. Holiday, who is with us virtually today, is working on that with some people. So more to come on the speed reduction. Okay. Any oh, sorry, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering if we have any, it's been a while since I asked about Highway 32 and CN, whether there's any updates.
I have not got an update, but I will ask. I am there next week. I will ask for an update at that time. Okay. Any other unfinished business? Seeing none, I'll move forward to other business, and I will call upon Mr. Holiday at this time to give us an update. Mr. Holiday? There we go.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight. I'm happy to attend virtually though. So update on the fire hall. With the weather, we had lost some ground, but I'm very pleased with what I saw when I was out there last week. At the point when I was out there, most of the structural steel had been erected. They were just finishing the last quarter of it, and they figure they're about a week behind now. At one point, I think we were 3 weeks behind, so they've made up some pretty solid ground quickly, and they expect within the next few weeks that they'll be right back on schedule again. So very, very pleased with that. We had our bi-weekly meeting last week as well, and what I'm told is that the reason they're able to make up so much time is because of the subcontractors that they're using. ASCO Concrete Structures, apparently they have never seen formwork as on point as what it was. Everything just moved right into place. They're using Sydenham Welding out of Kingston for the structural steel as well, and it just went together like it was built on site. Unbelievable. I watched them placing it as I was out there, and was, like I said, was very pleased with how quickly and effectively they were working. So more to come. I'm hoping within the next month that we'll be able to do our first walkthrough with council and all the firefighters. I've been talking with Mike about this as well too. So once they get everything closed in, the hope is to get you guys through for your first walkthrough and see what it looks like, get a sense of what we're constructing. So very exciting. Everything's moving as expected, and I think we had one extra for the geotechnical It amounted to less than $30,000. So we're in really good shape. Things are progressing quite well and on budget.
Any other questions in regards to the progression on the fire hall? Okay, seeing none. I just wanted to, Counselor Jameson, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed in last week's weekly that the fire service is reporting 180 calls, I guess, to the end of June, which is up 35 from the previous year. I'm just wondering, through your worship, if the chief can comment on what is driving this increase.
Through your worship. So I went through some of our stats from last year and then some of the ones from this year. A couple of things that are different this year is the odd time at night and on weekends we're sending a truck as a response out to some burn complaints, because what we're finding is we don't want to send one person out health and safety wise on our end. It's sometimes not the best environment to send one person out to. That's not ready to be met by some of the people that are burning sometimes. So we've been sending the odd truck out on weekends. So that's accounting for a few of the calls. Some of the other things that we're doing is we're doing a lot of inspections where we're going with Marnie's crew from Building and Bylaw and the OPP and the units from there. So when we go on something big like that, we're actually generating a call. It's not an emergency call, so we're not paging out stations, but we're documenting that. So we have on-scene times and that. So that's brought us up about another 10 calls. But it's just busy. Everything's everywhere, more fire calls for car accidents, calls for medical assist, and more fire calls related. So we've had, I think this year we've had 3 calls for hikers in distress out in the trails, which is something we don't normally have that many of either. So there's really, if I was to try to count one direction we're going, it's not just one thing. It's just a whole lot more of everything. So hope that kind of answered it.
Thank you. Councillor Corral, go ahead.
Just a follow-up and a short update on a CRCA meeting last week. This township had spent $76,000 as part of the St. Lawrence River mapping, flood mapping and so on. And that has essentially been completed. And interestingly enough, the province demanded that the CRCA also take into account now climate change. So apparently this study has done that, and it did take into account Plan 214 from the IJC and so on. And they gave us a presentation at any rate. So the information is being calculated or formulated, and then it becomes available to planning departments. That's the way it's going to work. So any work to be done in and around the St. Lawrence River and Lake Ontario with respect to the CRCA boundaries will go through planning departments. Nextly, the conservation area put together its new strategic plan for the next few years. And I think that's up for some public consultation again, but it looked pretty basic from a CRCA point of view. And I suppose more importantly, when you get into the weeds of it all, the last item that came up was the development strategies. So the portion, or pardon me, the department that is responsible for development and permitting at the CRCA, which are the ones that always seem to get delicate. Because of Bill 23 a couple of years ago and the provincial mandates, they were asked or have to, all the CAs in Ontario have to redraw or rewrite the guidelines, the actual nitty-gritty guideline. In other words, when the proposal comes in, they have a book. They open it up and they say, because of this, this, and this in our guidelines, it's either approved or not. That documentation is available on their website, and anybody who would like to get it, they can contact the CRCA. Because I say that because over the years I've been around this, there's a lot of misconception as to where this information gets adjudicated or how it gets adjudicated. And I've been now party to some of it at the CRCA meetings, and it's very specific stuff. And so the development group and permitting group is in a bit of a box at times, but they are redrawing it. And there you go. So it's there for the public consumption. If people are wondering about the how, the why, the where, the planning departments, of course, deal with this often. It's just that it's kind of a rabbit hole for many people, but hey, the public deserves to know where you can get the information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Councillor Jameson.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just wanted to, I know you'll bring it up on the mayor's update, but I just want to thank the fire service and township staff in general for all the special effort that was put into making sure that we were well served in Sealy's Bay for Canada Day yesterday. The park looked great. Fire service was there making lots of noise, and they were there to make sure nothing went wrong in the evening, and it didn't. So I'd like to thank the staff generally for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, a very busy weekend with Canada Day all over the place. Rib Fest in Guyane and down the waterfront last night with about 1,000 people, I would anticipate. It was very well attended. And thank you to the mayor for attending both events. Thank you. And it's always fun to have events. So this Friday, July 5th, the Gananoque Pride Alliance will be raising their flag on Town Hall, which I will be at also. And then on July 13th, which is a Saturday, they have a parade at 11 o'clock that starts at the rink, goes to the Joel Stone Park, which will have an official opening at 12 o'clock down at Joel Stone for the Gananoque Pride Alliance. So again, they have a fairly good large turnout. So please join in. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? I have no hands up, so I'll move on to notices of motion. Any notices of motion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, excuse me, with regards to the bridge crossing that's closed in Kingston, unless something changes, I'll have the clerk help me draft up a simplified letter to the city of Kingston to find some way to keep that crossing open for boat traffic. There is all kinds of business on the north side of that bridge that substitutes many of the people on the lake and the river, and I'm sure some of them are in our jurisdiction. But more importantly, our water businesses up and down the Rideau, of which we have plenty, are going to be handcuffed. I mean, I find it ironic that the city of Kingston is seriously considering just putting a temporary bridge across there with no forethought as to how, well, there won't be any water traffic getting by the way it sounds right now. I listened to a radio broadcast on this not very long ago, and there wasn't one indication that this was being considered. And yet it was just a few years ago, that they opened the Waban Crossing as the third crossing in Kingston. It was touted at the time as a substitute for incidents on the 401. Well, in my plain English, we have your third crossing, use it, but don't hold the people on the water hostage. You know, the pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles can use one of two ways to get to the city or out of the city. But the water people don't have that luxury. They have one mouth to get into the St. Lawrence, or in this case, Lake Ontario, and back up into the Rideau. But I'd like to send a letter to the city of Kingston authorities, or the city of Kingston Council in this case, to put a little more thought into those that are making a living on the waterways. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to follow up on Councillor Fode's comments there, it actually is the federal government that actually has that piece of property. So it's actually up to Mark Gerritsen as the representative in this area to ensure that that waterway is maintained and open. Now, and to that point, the height of the bridge, certainly the marinas in there do have maybe some larger vessels than what the Waban allows to pass through to go up into the Rideau. So consideration needs to be made there on what they put in. And again, I know the federal government's working on this. Happens to be another person who's kind of working, and I've seen some of that stuff. But certainly, I totally agree. We need to have that waterway so it's at least navigable when they need to open it up. And to that point, they've actually left the one piece of bridge there, I think purposely to see if they can reuse it. So I'm not sure whether they're going to do that or not, but the federal government is the one who has the jurisdiction, so we need to pressure them.
So if the notice of motion comes forward, it should be to put a letter to Mr. Gerenston because they are the ones that making the decision, I'm pretty sure.
Excuse me if I may, the city of Kingston is the one that's been commenting on it as well.
Oh, well.
So I mean, if we were to piggyback with them to show them there's more than just the city of Kingston at risk here.
And that.
There's a lot of businesses. Some of these businesses rely on the businesses on the north side of that causeway to keep these, Councillor Lackey would likely answer a lot of this, a lot of these boats up to go up there for testing every year. And, if they're gonna get there, then what? You know, I think we need to act upon this before it is acted against everybody. And by that time, it's too late. Thank you.
Okay, so, any other notices of motion? Go ahead, Mr. Lackey.
No, sorry, just for clarification on Deputy Mayor's motion. Because for the general traffic going up the Rito, don't use that particular bridge opening. They use the one closest to CFB, which would your fly bridge go into there, I think?
I've never been.
The majority of traffic, non-commercial traffic already has a way to get up through.
It's more the cruise ships.
It's more for sailboats and larger ships that use the old bridge. But for the most part, it's looked after by the bridge closest to CFB.
Either way, it's
We still
posing
need
a
to
big,
endorse it.
it's a big inconvenience. And for those who work in Kingston, who work downtown, who maybe live in the west side of this township that had a 20-minute drive to work and now have a 45-minute drive or more because they have to go up and around. Mr. Holiday, Mr. Holiday's wife. But I know that it's posing some challenges, especially for businesses downtown Kingston as well. And our people who live at that end of our township, when you're used to being able to get into the city for whatever reason, it definitely changes things. So any other notices of motion? Seeing none, I'll go right into the mayor's update. I hope everybody had a wonderful Canada Day. I know I did. A number of things happened yesterday. So we started at Ribfest in Gananoque, then went up to Sealy's Bay and had a great Canada Day parade. And thank you to Councillor Kelman, Councillor Lackey, Councillor Jameson, although Councillor Jameson didn't hang out with us because he was too cool to walk in the parade. And we walked alongside MPP Steve Clark, who also made a point of being there. And then back to the waterfront stage in Gananoque, which was extremely well attended. And if you have an opportunity, please read the poem that the poet laureate Gretchen Huntley spoke at that particular. It was very appropriate and very uplifting. And what made it so uplifting for me, she talked about a patchwork quilt and how Canada has become, the seams that bind us, the patches that come together, the differences between us, but that we all make this beautiful quilt. As I was walking to the event, I literally parked closer to Riva up the street. And that's 3 blocks. By the time I walked to the waterfront, I'm sure that I heard no less than 3 or 4 other languages, individuals that may live here. They could be visiting, I don't know. But the cross section of people that were down on the waterfront, both locals and visitors alike, was absolutely spectacular. And then Chicken Wire was the band who entertained, and they did a fantastic job. We got to sing All Canada together, which is pretty cool with, 500 to 1,000 people. And it was just a great way to end the day. Being very grateful to be a Canadian, being very grateful to be mayor of this township alongside all of you who serve, and all the people that are so great to volunteer in our communities, Sealy's Bay, Gananoque, Lansdowne, Olive, and everything in between. It's really a great way to show off, and there was lots of spirit. So July 4th is also coming up. Our American neighbors are not far distant, so keep your eyes to the south. I'm sure you'll see some fireworks on the 4th. So happy Independence Day to our neighbors and friends across the border. The Centennial Park was full last night or yesterday afternoon for cupcakes and what have you, but then we had the benefit of cutting the ribbon, the newly minted Sealy's Bay sign down at the Sealy's Bay Harbor. Just a huge thanks to Sabara and specifically Cindy Healy and Derek, who run Ridgeway. Apparently they were the masterminds with getting the signs done and getting them done quickly and up, and the sign holder painted. And it just goes to show that when the community binds itself together, they can get things done much more quickly than we can at times, because they have a little more freedom to move those projects forward. But it was great. So we cut the ribbon there yesterday, and very happy to see that. Just a warning that Kendricks Beach has received a notice from Leeds and Grenville Lanark District Health Unit that the beach is at a caution level and not recommended for swimming. There are some concerns about water quality, so please watch our website and social media platforms and updates to follow the weekly beach results, because they do test it weekly. Lansdowne Fair is going to be held July 18th to the 21st here across the way, and it is 160 years old, which is pretty remarkable for any event to happen that long. Opening ceremonies happen on the Thursday evening, and there will be a band directly afterwards. I believe they're at 6:30 that evening. And then the Thousand Islands Breakfast, as previously mentioned, is July 20th at, I believe, 9 a.m. at the Thousand Islands Playhouse. So any of our island members, our island residents and those who boat in this area, I would highly recommend that you go. There will be a presentation from our fire department, as well as, I believe, Scott McCrimmon is a speaker at the AGM as well. The 2024 Charleston Lake Association AGM is on the 27th of July. So any and all are welcome to attend. I must say that the guest speakers they have at the Charleston Lake Association is super interesting. They've had fish habitat protection people from Queens. They've had all sorts of people. And again, our fire department will be out talking about fire safety and out on the water on our back lakes. So really pleased to see that the township is very much involved in a lot of these things, because we have limited opportunities to speak to our seasonal residents. So it's a great way to be there. So hopefully some of you can attend. Any other things that I need to put on the list for events in July? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
I just want to congratulate all the hundreds and hundreds of families in the township who had to graduate, whether it be junior kindergarten, grade 12, high school, Queen's University, St. Lawrence College, and the list goes on and on and on. It's, I enjoy reading those posts when it's usually parents or proud grandparents, whoever it may be, that put these posts up. But the future's there, and it's very interesting to watch all these posts. Had the pleasure of attending a high school in Perth last week for the eldest granddaughter, and it was a grade 8 graduation. And to see 83 grade 8 students, it was a little overwhelming. I miscued and thought the list was including everybody in the high school that was graduating, only to be corrected it was grade 8 only. But getting back to our own residents here, it's a fun time for them. Summer's out, everybody enjoy, and as been stated by the mayor and others, I mean, there's been a lot of fun things already kicked off early in the summer, and there's a lot yet to come. So it's time for families to have a little less scheduled life and maybe a little more hectic, but nonetheless fun.
Councillor Kalman.
Along the deputy mayor's lines, I thought I would mention that Seth Morency, who received one of our student grants, received $120,000 scholarship.
Wow.
From the Schulich Leader Scholarship, it's called. He's going to be studying engineering at Dalhousie in the fall.
That's amazing.
So huge congratulations to him. I didn't even know they did scholarships that big. It's in Canada. So
Wow.
yeah.
I'm sure that he'll use every dollar of it for the cost of post-secondary education, but that's incredible. Congratulations to Seth. Okay, I got my kid through high school. Graduation was Thursday night, so it's been a hectic couple of weeks, and thank you to all our friends and family who've been inquiring about us. We really appreciate it. So, okay, I think that's everything. So the last thing is motion to adjourn. Counselor Lackey is moving, seconded by Counselor Correll, that the committee of the whole adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Have a great summer. We'll see you in September. Oh, see you at council next. Oh, see ya. Bye.